Welcome to the Greater Reality Healing Program, journeying from deeply grieving to brightly shining. Hi, I'm Dr. Mark Pitstick. To learn more about me, my training, experience, and outreaches, visit soulproof.com/about. But you'll be learning more about me through this course. I want to give special thanks to the organization Helping Parents Heal for creating such stellar ways to help people, these are parents of children who have passed on, to heal, transform, and help others. And also kudos to those who kept asking me, are there any Helping Parents Heal like organizations for the rest of us? Those who have had a loved one pass, a spouse, a sibling, other family member, a friend, or a pet. And I couldn't find any that use this holistic, high energy approach. So actually on November 25th, 2024, I awake in the middle of the night with a giant download, wrote notes for several hours, and that's the course you're going to be getting. Now, of course, I've been working in fields for over 50 years, so I had a lot of the products, the articles, and so on in place. But the way to combine these and present them in a way that can literally help you heal and transform yourself, again, journey from deeply grieving to brightly shining. This is a unique program, and I'm sure if you use it, you will benefit from it. Now, the bodily death of a beloved person or pet can be one of the most difficult changes during an earthly experience. I say can be because it doesn't have to. When I interviewed Wayne Dyer in 2000 on my radio show, he said that highly self-actualizing people react to death almost as though it doesn't happen, because really it doesn't. I mean, no one can really die. We're beings of energy. We're beings of consciousness, spirit. However, still it can be challenging, even if you know all that. And then other changes, for example, involving finances, health, aging, relationship breakups, can be very challenging. Now, when two or more of these occur in a short period of time, it's common to feel overwhelmed. It's like you're double teamed. So this program primarily addresses grief after loved ones pass on, but it also can help you ultimately handle any big change in life. Now notice I'll use the term change instead of loss for reasons you'll learn in this article, but part of it is using more accurate language since, as it turns out, we can't really lose anything. So after what seem like losses, some people feel lower energy emotions such as sadness, guilt, anger, despair, and/or suicidal thoughts. In an attempt to cope, they may choose lower energy actions, excess alcohol and drug use, sexual infidelity or promiscuity, hurting themselves or others, self-neglect, isolation. To be clear, I'm not judging or criticizing any of these attempts to handle the pain and despair that can occur after major life changes. After the breakup of a 4-year first love relationship at age 21, I felt all of those lower energy emotions and made some of those poor choices. And 50 years later, that's one reason I can help so many people so powerfully now. I've been through the dark night of the soul. I emerged as a more loving, compassionate, wise person. One of the keys to doing that was focusing on higher energy feelings and choices. Now, when I say lower and higher energy, I'm not making a judgment. This is based on, for example, the work of David Hawkins, MD, PhD, author of Force versus Power, where he rather objectively measured these energies. So that's what it's about. There are higher and lower energies, well established on that. So searching for higher energy feelings and choices, because it is a choice. Moment to moment, you can focus on what you choose to focus on. Like Esther and Jerry Hicks say, reach for the highest feeling thought. So if there's 100 bad things going on in your life, but one good thing, focus on that good thing. And then that increased energy will help you better address the quote bad or difficult things. So I learned to find the silver linings that always accompany adversity to improve my life and to share those with others. So again, 50 years later, I can see how wonderfully life is set up, even when it doesn't seem like it. I know if you're going through deep grief right now, it's been recent, this statement, how wonderfully life is set up, can sound like a cruel joke or nonsense, but it's really true. And through this course, we'll talk about that and how you can realize it yourself, not just intellectually knowing it, but deeply internalizing it, knowing in your DNA. And that's when you're free. That's when you're awake and enlightened. But I can't get ahead of myself. So over the last 50 years, I worked in 2 hospitals part-time for 6 years as a respiratory therapist, technician. And I was around many suffering and dying people, adults and children. I attended theology school and provided pastoral counseling at a psychiatric hospital, juvenile detention center, and suicide prevention center. I worked in 2 mental health centers as a master's level clinical psychologist. I provided holistic health care as a chiropractic physician at my clinics for over 35 years. I wrote 8 books and created 10 transformative articles, or audios rather. I produced the Soul Phone documentary film, which is now available at no charge. Just visit the bottom of my homepage, website, soulproof.com. And I hosted 2 radio shows on afterlife evidence and practical spirituality. That is, how can we best live? How can we have an optimal earthly experience when we know the big picture of life, when we understand more about the nature of reality? And I've done much more. So again, to learn more, even more, visit soulproof.com/about. Now I share all this not to toot my horn. I don't need the ego aggrandizement at this point, but to help you know, to reassure you that you're in good hands. I've been doing all this for a long time. I have a lot of great information that can literally change your life for the better, every aspect of your life. So my goal is to help you know how very safe and precious this earthly experience is, no matter what is happening to or around you, so you can respond to that, find the blessings, and so on. And this Greater Reality Healing Program can help you know and show this relatively quickly and easily. So you won't have to spend 50 years reading hundreds of books, attending many conferences, making mistakes, learning the hard way like I did. Now, to be clear, feeling some lower energy emotions, sadness, hopelessness, etc., after a big change in your life for a while is normal. However, you don't have to suffer intensely for a long time. You realize some people never recover from the bodily death of a loved one. They take it to their grave. They never recover. 10, 20, 30 years later, I've worked with these people. I mean, I know these people. Not worked with them on this topic, but for example, provided chiropractic care. So their grieving wasn't why they came to me. So there's a better way. You don't have to choose grief-driven actions and feelings that make things worse, ruin your life, and frankly, for the people around you. Now, I know that different people grieve in various ways as they counter change. And while acknowledging and honoring that, this program invites you to consider a different way to respond to big changes that inevitably happen during this earthly experience. So again, this Greater Reality Healing Program provides evidence-based information and holistic resources so you can handle all changes with style. So that's very important because you realize a lot of the information that people have is wrong, or it's limiting. It's only part of the big picture. So you're going to learn a lot of powerful information that will help you and help you help others. Now, the keys shared in this video series, I think there are 17 of them, when used consistently, can help you heal more quickly and fully than you might imagine. What's more, this approach can positively transform every aspect of your life. And I'm not just making this up, blowing smoke. If this seems impossible, especially if you're deeply and or freshly grieving right now, it's true. Because I've worked with so many people who have demonstrated this. It's been one of the blessings of working with tens and tens of thousands of people over the last 50 plus years. You understand that many people have remarkably transformed, not despite of, but because of the tough changes that seem like cruel and senseless tragedies. And when I interviewed them years later, they almost always said almost the same thing. If I could go back and change that, and we're talking about being molested, raped, paralyzed, fill in the blank, anything, losing their ability to be mobile and so on. If I could go back and change that, I wouldn't, because of all the growth that has happened and all the wonderful people I've met along the way, all the lessons. See, that's how a more enlightened or awakened soul speaks. They don't just look at the short term, the physical body, because you realize this earthly experience is a blink of an eye in the span of eternity. They're looking more at the big picture of things, because when you have spiritual growth, when you grow in love, service, compassion, those are eternal gifts that you take with you into the next phase of life and ongoing. So these people I mentioned, they now enjoy much greater peace, enthusiasm, joy, awareness as they lovingly serve others and make our world a better place. They're some of the most amazing and happy and outgoing people I know. And again, if you listen to conventional wisdom, it doesn't make sense at first, but there are enough people that show that's possible. After what seem like senseless tragedies, cruel events, they were able to survive and even thrive versus identifying themselves as a helpless victim in a cruel, uncaring world, for the rest of their time on Earth. Of course, you understand when you pass on, then you get to see the big picture. You literally see the light, and you're like, oh, okay, now I remember. But it's really advantageous to remember that now. And one of the big keys to them doing this is they want beyond their personal suffering, even though they felt it, and decided to help others, make their loved ones who changed worlds proud of them, to honor them, and to make our world a better place. So if they can do it, you can too, and this program will show you how. It may not be easy, it doesn't happen overnight, but it is possible, and it's so powerful. It could be one of the major reasons why you as a soul came to Earth, to encounter this challenge and find the high road to addressing it. There are 4 levels of this greater reality healing program for you to benefit from and to share with others. The first is the article number 82 at soulproof.com. And by the way, all the articles I reference in these videos are free, and they're at soulproof.com/articles. The second layer of benefit, or the second way you can learn this program, is to watch the video that I'm recording right now. And those will be under the top tab Greater Reality Programs at both my soulproof.com website and also the soulphone.org website. Third is that we'll have virtual meetings and groups beginning in the spring of 2025. So that's about, say, 3 months from now. And if you sign up for the free newsletters at soulproof.com and soulphone.org, you will learn about when these are starting, the dates, the times, and the Zoom meeting number so you can attend. It's all free, and there's nothing you have to join. You just show up. Now, initially, these free meetings, there'll be everyone who's attending in a group for the presentation, and then we'll have breakout groups um, for more one-on-one care. I mean, maybe 10 people per group. So that's all virtual. But then the fourth planned way that people will benefit from this program is those who want to form in-person groups, local groups. So people can go over all this and work together to get the benefits and make the world a better place. Existing grief groups are also welcome to use all or part of this holistic approach to handling the biggest changes in life. Thank you in advance for telling others about this program. And sharing it with others, by the way, is one way for you to internalize it more. You know, the old saying, we teach most what we need to learn. Well, I must need to learn a lot of things. So let's dive in. The term greater reality, as in Greater Reality Healing Program, describes the totality of life, all that actually exists. And you realize that the average person sees only a fraction of the greater reality. Other synonyms for this term include the big picture of life, how life is really set up, and the true nature of reality. So I'll be using these different terms throughout. So these terms convey the scientific fact that your brain and five senses, as amazing as they are, detect a very small fraction of life, much less than 1% of reality. One way to look at this comes from top quantum physicists interviewed in Lynn McTaggart's wonderful book, The Field. And in my words, they basically put it this way. In reality, humans are not just solid people who are separate from others and source and die someday. It just appears that way due to their myopic, that is short-sighted, nearsighted perceptions from their limited brains and sense organs, and also societal teachings that indoctrinate people into thinking they're only human. I know my mom, God bless her, she passed in 2023, sure said that to me a lot. Mark, you're only human. You can't change the world. And yet, here I am working to help all people in our world. So, sorry, Mom, you weren't right about everything. And the same way with you, you're not just human. You're, as the saying goes, a spiritual being having a physical experience, a human experience. From a physics perspective, energy, light, and information are the most accurate terms for what you and your loved ones are really composed of. So again, it appears that we're solid, the chair you're sitting on is solid, your desk. It's not. It's just a bunch of energy swirling around electrons with 99.9% space in the middle of that. What is really happening is a dance of energy. Energy, light, consciousness, information. If you want to use religious terms, spirit. That's what's really going on. So if all of that exists in our world with the size of Mount Everest, the portion that could be sensed by the average person would only be the size of a golf ball. Wow, that in itself is so important to know, and it explains so many apparent unfairnesses and mysteries in life. Here's another way to put it that I learned from my colleague, Dr. Gary Schwartz. He said that if all that really exists in our world, again, we're talking about energy, information, light, consciousness, if all that were the height of the Empire State Building, the portion that the average person perceives would only be the height of a coat of paint. Mind-boggling, right? So it's so important to know that you are looking through a tiny pinhole, most likely, wondering why things don't make sense. So if you can enlarge that just a little bit, even to a silver dollar size, you will, as the Eastern wise men and women say, standing on a bridge watching the river flow be underneath, so it is. You see the big picture of life more, and it's all good news. It's all wonderful. I'll be teaching about this from now. You can trust me on this, but there's a lot of evidence for that. So no wonder so many people believe that life is horribly tragic, unfair, and chaotic when changes like bodily death occur. Again, they're just changes, they're not an end. And I use the modifier, by the way, bodily death, because really no one really dies. The only thing that dies is this earthly form. So people call it your earth suit. And again, the rest of you that exists is much more than that. So everything else exists about you except this earthly form. Such an important distinction to understand. And that alone really changes your reaction when loved ones, people, and pets change worlds, which is a Native American term. When they pass on, when they transition from Earth, when they graduate from this earthly experience. Now, fortunately, you can expand your awareness and your understandings about the nature of reality, the greater reality. And as you do, you'll realize just how safely, fairly, and beautifully life is set up. This program is based on the great news about the nature of reality. Dr. Gary Schwartz, I mentioned, PhD, former Harvard and Yale professor, who's now Professor Emeritus at the University of Arizona, and I compiled this list, 10 statements about that indicate how life is set up. And this list is based on scientific and clinical evidence. And also there's a lot of what we call experiential evidence for them, that is based on firsthand experiences. So that's what's called the great news, and I discuss this more fully in article number 19 at soulproof.com. And Dr. Schwartz and I also wrote the book The Big Picture of Life with Kata Mapes, who has a master's in childhood education and childhood counseling. So this is a similar book to Greater Reality Living for ages approximately 10 through 16. Now, Dr. Schwartz is a pioneer in the fields of behavioral medicine, energy healing, and survival of consciousness. And now he directs the Soul Phone Project at the Laboratory for Advances in Consciousness and Health. For over 25 years, he has addressed the question, does life really continue after bodily death, as a scientist. So he and his team of electrical engineers, software developers, evidential mediums, and post-material, that is, so-called departed luminaries, have now scientifically and definitively proven that bodily death is not the end of life. So that's a big statement. Let me break it down. First of all, evidential mediums are those people who have sensitive abilities, who can see, hear, feel, or know people who have passed on. Dr. Schwartz's, one of his early books called The Afterlife Experiments, discussed his scientific research of mediums. He knew that some mediums were fake, some were very mediocre, but some have rock star abilities to pick up detailed information, and he used blind conditions and so on. There's no way the mediums could know about the subjects, and yet they came up with about 86% successful, accurate hit rate on details about people who had passed for the loved one who is the subject. And another term I used in there, post-material persons. So that is our preferred term for people who have passed on, changed worlds. And you can read, I'll list an article here in a bit that describes more about that term, post-material persons. And when we say post-material luminaries, we're referring to what's called the A-Team, a group of about 30 amazing people who were geniuses, pioneers on Earth, and they've continued to work in the next realm on their specific areas of expertise. For example, Nikola Tesla on free energy, and people like Albert Einstein and David Bohm for world peace and advancing understandings of science about the greater reality. So with that background in mind, oh, and by the way, I mentioned about 30 people on the A-Team because that's all that the team can, our earthly team, can deal with. You know, you can't hear information from thousands of people simultaneously. But we are told through different mediums independently that for every a team member we're working with, there are hundreds of more waiting in the wings when we can accommodate their input. So this is super exciting. So let me read this again. Dr. Schwartz and his team of electrical engineers, software developers, evidential mediums, and post-material luminaries have now scientifically and definitively proven that bodily death is not the end of life. Wow, that's huge right there. You already got your money's worth. Oh wait, this is free. And so is everything else that I'm offering. So the 10 items of the great news, and then we'll wrap this video. I'm trying to keep them about 30 minutes each. The great news is that you and everyone else are beings of consciousness, energy, spirit, who still live after your earthly body dies. Next, that you can interact with, quote, deceased loved ones now and after you pass on. Third, that you're an integral, infinite, eternal, and beloved part of source energy, the light, God, now and always. Fourth, that you receive guidance, assistance, and love from angels, guides, master teachers, and other highly evolved helpers. Fifth, that you are sacredly interconnected with all people, animals, and nature. Six, you have special purposes for being on Earth right now. 7, you may simultaneously manifest in other space-time realities now and after bodily death. This has to do with multilocation. And 8, you have everything you need, no matter what your past or current circumstances, to enjoy the greatest life you have envisioned. And the word you there refers to your higher self, your soul, the totality of your energy. In other words, what happens during this earthly experience may not be what your limited earthly, your ego, call it, self would want, but it is what your soul wants, or can be what your soul wants. Your soul is not focused on what is easy and comfortable and safe all the time. Number 9 in the list of the great news, you can find peace, joy, meaning, growth, and fulfillment, opportunities for loving service among your greatest changes and challenges. And the 10th, you create the quality of your life, whether you're living on earth or in the next stage of life, via your predominant thoughts, words, and actions. The last piece of great news is that someday, quite likely, quite probably, you will be able to use soul phone technology to communicate with your post-material loved ones and luminaries who can help you, others in our world. And so I want to talk about the evidence for this, because it's very important that we have evidence-based statements, not just what somebody thinks or what somebody thought a couple thousand years ago. So statements 1 and 2 in the great news, and those are that life continues after bodily death, and that you can experience a different relationship with your loved ones now, as well as when you pass on. Those statements are based on scientific research at the University of Arizona. And that research involved true scientific experiments, which means it involved scientific methodology, controlled, blinded, replicated, multi-centered studies published in peer-reviewed journals. I know it kind of sounds boring, but it's really important to establish what is actually true. Statement number 2, that is, you can sense your loved ones who have passed now and after you pass on, is also based on double-blinded laboratory research at 5 universities and institutes with results published in scientific journals. Most people don't know about this, but the references to all this are in my article number 1 at soulproof.com. Statements number 3 through 10, and again, you can see the whole list of the great news at article number 19, are based on clinical research by physicians, psychologists, and/or university professors. And they evaluated clinical data from near-death experiences, past life memories, perinatal experiences as occurring right around the time of birth, life between lives input from the work of Dr. Michael Newton, shared death experiences, also known as shared crossings, terminal lucidity, and deathbed visions. And all this is also described in my book, The Afterlife Evidence. In addition, experiential evidence, and so we're talking about now firsthand experiences, although they're not validated like scientific and clinical data, this experiential evidence adds further validity about these statements, the great news. And categories of evidence, experiential evidence, include afterlife contacts, out-of-body experiences, electronic voice phenomena, instrumental transcommunication, and other first-hand experiences. Knowing the great news and living accordingly, whatever that means for you, is an integral part of the Greater Reality Healing Program. It's the foundation of it. In other words, when you really know how life is set up and live as such, you're free, you're at peace. And this is what great religious teachers were trying to share with people. But unfortunately, those messages got changed, concretized over the years, changed by powerful people who wanted to control and make money from it. So, but really, this great news is all around, and more advanced souls know it as a child. They know it within, but then they're taught differently. So anyway, lots of ways to know it, and this course is definitely going to help you know how life is really set up, the great news. The more you learn about all this, the more you will know that this earthly experience is a totally safe, meaningful, and magnificent adventure amidst forever. Now that's a lot of words. That quote came to me this way years ago. I was just waking up, that point where you just open one eye, like, what time is it? I gotta go to the bathroom. But I realized that something that seemed very profound had been going round and round in my brain, and I wanted to catch it. I didn't want to lose it. So I closed my eyes and acted like I was still asleep, and it repeated one more time. And that's the saying I just wrote to you, or I just said to you. This earthly experience is a totally safe, meaningful, and magnificent adventure amidst forever. So you may want to write that one down and post it where you'll see it often until you've memorized it, because this is one of the most concise but accurate descriptions of reality I'm aware of, and it didn't come from me, from my angels or team or whoever. Near the end of his earthly experience, Buckminster Fuller, the legendary architect, inventor, philosopher, and futurist, was asked, "What is the most important message you would like to share with others?" And he paused and said that the universe is friendly. So that's a simpler way of saying all this. The universe is friendly. You can relax, and you're an integral part of all that, whether you want to call it God or cosmos, universe. It's okay. It's safe, even though it doesn't seem like it sometimes, but you're going to learn that it is. So armed with this wisdom about how marvelously life is set up, you can increasingly, and again, no matter what's happening to or around you, because I know people watching this are experiencing all sorts of different adversity and challenges, you can always focus on higher energy feelings of peace, joy, love, hope, gratitude, and fulfillment. You also, even amidst tough times, can choose optimal actions, self-care, fulfilling relationships, meaningful life work, serving others, and loving activism. And again, we are getting a formula for this after working with so many people. For example, for the last 10 and a half years, I've worked with this organization I mentioned in video 1, helpingparentsheal.org is their website. A year and a half ago, I interviewed 130 what we call shining light parents. They went through the dark night of the soul like most people after their kids passed on. And I say kids because one of them had 5 children. All of her children passed. A number of them had 2 or 3 kids. I mean, this is tough stuff. And yet, these amazing parents found a way to do this, to focus on the positive. And there are interviews. You can watch these interviews at the website I just mentioned under Affiliate Leader and Caring Listener interviews. They're posted on YouTube. And the excerpts or the highlights of these interviews are in a book I created with a team, and it's called Shining Light Parents. So you can learn directly from these people how to do this. One of the big takeaways was they realized that they can choose joy, peace, service to others, and so on, even while they're feeling sad, angry, guilty, fearful, hopeless. In other words, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can feel that sad and so on, but you can say, you know what, just today I'm going to do something positive for 5 minutes, whether it's take a walk or go to the animal shelter and volunteer for an hour, or go to a homeless shelter and serve meals, or think about positive things. And we'll mention all kinds of techniques that you can use here. So that's really important. You feel sad and still you work toward joy. You feel anger and still you work toward peace. It's really a sacred process of transmutation, like alchemy. And the most important thing, just take the first few steps. This program is overwhelming, the amount of information and resources. So just take it in bite-sized chunks. Just do a little bit at a time. So I hope you're ready for that. Please don't feel overwhelmed by all the information and resources. Again, just learn and take action steps at your own pace. Now, a few notes before we wrap up the introduction and get into the first key. First of all, this article is intended as a reference source, not to replace professional treatment for physical, emotional, or mental symptoms. I always have to cover this legal base. Also, I discuss many deep topics that can upset some people. And that's why, common advice says don't talk about religion or politics. That's why it's there for a reason. Well, I'm not going to talk about politics, but I will definitely talk about religion. And so if you're sensitive about that, then just skip through when I do talk about it. It's nearly impossible that you'll agree with everything I say in this article. Life would be pretty boring if everybody were totally the same, believed the same, but I must address controversial subjects if this is to be a truly holistic program. I hope you won't fly off the handle at the first thing you disagree with and thereby deny yourself of the healing benefits in this program. Finally, I created this article while wearing the hat of a clinician, counselor, educator. My statements, again, are based on some scientific data, more clinical studies, and definitely experiential evidence, my personal experiences, and my best current understandings, which change over time. But this program does not reflect my roles with the Soul Phone Project, since those require more scientifically validated data for all statements. The next note, the evidence-based information and holistic resources to assist your journey from deeply grieving to brightly shining include free articles, which I mentioned at soulproof.com, and I'll be mentioning these articles throughout this program. Next, radio shows to hear free radio interviews with experts, Wayne Dyer, Brian Weiss, Raymond Moody, Michael Newton, Dr. Schwartz, Anita Morjani, Carolyn Mace. So many wonderful, and these are free interviews. Just visit soulproof.com and select the top tab, radio shows. Also free monthly newsletters at soulproof.com and soulphone.org. Next, my audio programs and books at soulproof.com/shop are very inexpensive, about ranging from $12 to $15. However, if you can't afford that, email me, Mark at soulproof.com. Who does this? Mark, M-A-R-K, at soulproof.com, and we'll send you free digital copies, all right, of any of the books or audio programs. We want this available to all people. My dear friend Brian Smith has a wonderful website and program called grieftogrowth.com, and the 2 is the number 2, grieftogrowth.com. So that's another excellent resource for those seeking a higher path to handling grief. Dr. Schwartz has written many books. Some of those are listed at the Laboratory for Advances in Consciousness and Health website, which is lach.arizona.edu, and all those books are available at amazon.com. I've read them all. They're very informative, interesting, and inspiring, and I highly recommend them. The third, and I hope last note, is to learn more about key topics that I've discussed so far in this introduction. See the following articles. Number 19, The Great News. Number 35, The Soul Phone Project. And number 108, Higher Energies, Emotions, and Ways of Being. That's a lot of information. Let's wrap video 1. So see you soon. Let it shine. God bless.